My fiancé blew our $30,000 wedding fund on a sure bet. Then his mom tried to guilt me into forgiving him. But I took him to court and exposed his dirty secrets. I, 28F, had been with Mike, 30M, for 5 years. We got engaged about a year ago, and I thought things were going great. We were saving for our wedding together, planning every detail to make it perfect but not over the top. We agreed to open a joint account specifically for the wedding fund, and both of us were supposed to contribute equally. Over a year and a half, we'd saved $30,000. I was proud of us and excited to start the next chapter of our lives. One evening, while reviewing my own finances, I decided to check our wedding fund. I hadn't looked at it in a while because I trusted Mike completely. But when I logged in, the balance wasn't $30,000. It was $300. I refreshed the page, logged out and back in, checked the account number. Everything was correct. The money was gone. Just like that. I immediately called Mike. I tried to keep my voice calm, but I'm sure he could hear something was off. Hey, did you take money out of the wedding fund? I'm seeing something weird. There was silence on the other end. Then he said, yeah. I was going to tell you about that. Tell me about what? Where's the money? I said, my voice rising. He started stammering, trying to find his words. Look, I put it on a bet. It was a sure thing. I was going to double it, maybe even triple it. I thought I'd surprise you. You bet $30,000 of our money? I was practically yelling at this point. It wasn't like that, he said, defensive now. It wasn't gambling. It was an investment. The odds were amazing. I got this tip from a guy at work, and I thought it would be a good move. You thought? Without even talking to me. I said, that money was for our wedding, Mike. You don't just take it and risk it like that. He started trying to explain, saying he did it for us, that he was trying to make the wedding and honeymoon stress-free. He said he didn't want to worry me by asking if it was okay, that he thought I'd be happy with the extra money. I couldn't even process what he was saying. I just said, you've ruined everything, and hung up the phone. The next day, I went through our bank records. It wasn't just the $30,000 he'd bet on this so-called sure thing. He'd been siphoning money out of the account for months, thousands at a time. It added up to almost $10,000 before the final $20,000 bet. He'd been lying to me for months, and I hadn't even noticed because I trusted him completely. When I confronted him in person, he tried to spin it like he was the victim. You don't understand how much pressure I've been under, trying to make this wedding perfect for you, he said. I thought this was a way to make things easier. I didn't want you to have to stress about money. Don't you dare put this on me, I said. This isn't about the wedding. This is about you lying to me, stealing from me, and throwing away everything we've worked for because you couldn't help yourself. You didn't do this for me. You did it for you. He started begging me to forgive him, saying he'd make it up to me, that he'd get the money back somehow. He even suggested taking out a loan to cover the wedding costs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him the wedding was off and walked out. Canceling the wedding was devastating. We'd already put down deposits for the venue, photographer, and catering, some of which were non-refundable. I lost thousands more on top of the money Mike had gambled away. But there was no way I could marry someone who had lied to me, betrayed me, and showed no real understanding of what he'd done. I thought that was the end of it. I thought canceling the wedding and cutting him out of my life would be enough. I was wrong. A week after the breakup, I got a call from the police. Mike had filed a report claiming I had stolen money from him before the breakup. He said I'd transferred funds from our joint account into my personal account without his consent. I was stunned. Not only was this a complete lie, but the audacity of it left me speechless. I contacted my lawyer immediately and provided them with detailed bank statements showing every transaction. The records clearly showed that Mike had been the one withdrawing money, not me. I even had receipts and emails from wedding vendors to prove that I had used my portion of the money responsibly. When the police confronted Mike with the evidence, he tried to spin another story, saying I was just good at hiding things. But the investigation revealed his gambling withdrawals, making it obvious he'd filed a false report. The police charged him for wasting their time and filing a false report, and he ended up with a fine and a criminal record. I wasn't done. After that stunt, I went to every mutual friend and family member Mike had lied to and showed them the truth. I laid out the bank records, the court documents, everything. Mike had been telling people I was the one who ruined his life over a small mistake. I made sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person he was. But Mike wasn't the only one playing games. His mom, Karen, decided to get involved. She called me, demanding I returned valuable family heirlooms that Mike had supposedly given me during our relationship. She specifically mentioned a gold bracelet and a set of antique dishes that she'd gifted us as a wedding present. Here's the thing, there were no heirlooms. The bracelet was a cheap piece Mike had bought me for our first anniversary, and the dishes were still in their original packaging from a department store. Karen was clearly trying to guilt me into giving up whatever she could spin into a sob story. When I refused, she went on a smear campaign. She messaged mutual friends and family, claiming I was holding the family's heritage hostage and refusing to return sentimental items. At one point, she even showed up at my apartment, banging on the door and yelling in the hallway that she was there to get what was hers. I called the police again. When the officers arrived, I showed them the receipts for the bracelet and dishes, proving they weren't heirlooms. Karen tried to argue, but the officers told her to leave or face trespassing charges. After that, I sent copies of the receipts and a detailed account of her behavior to every relative she'd tried to manipulate. Karen's antics blew up in her face, and she became the subject of family gossip instead of me. Mike, however, wasn't done. A month after the court ruling, he decided to attack me where he thought it would hurt the most, my career. I work in marketing for a well-known company, and he knew how much my job meant to me. One morning, my boss called me into her office and told me the company had received an email from a client accusing me of mishandling a major project and leaking confidential information to a competitor. The email even included a fake thread of messages that appeared to show me sharing sensitive data. I knew immediately it was Mike, but the email was disturbingly convincing. My boss assured me she trusted me, but said we needed to investigate. The company's IT team traced the email back to a throwaway account linked to Mike's IP address. When they showed me the evidence, I felt a mix of anger and relief. With the support of my company's legal team, I filed a defamation lawsuit against Mike. This time, the consequences were even more severe. The court ordered him to pay damages, which covered my legal fees and compensated me for the stress he had caused. I also secured a restraining order, ensuring he could never contact me or my workplace again. To make sure Mike's lies didn't follow me, I made sure the truth got back to our mutual friends and his professional network. I didn't have to exaggerate anything. Just explaining what he'd done was enough to destroy any chance he had of maintaining his reputation. Mike had effectively blacklisted himself from future employment in his field. By the end of it all, I was emotionally and financially drained, but I knew I'd done the right thing. Mike and his family had tried every dirty trick they could think of, but I refused to let them win. Walking away from the wedding wasn't just about ending the relationship. It was about reclaiming my life. This whole experience taught me that trust isn't something you can take for granted in a relationship. It has to be earned and maintained. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. If I had ignored the red flags and gone through with the wedding, I would have tied myself to a man who valued his ego more than our partnership. Instead, I walked away with my dignity and a stronger sense of who I am.